Hello, Amazing Ampharos here to talk to you guys today about stage legality in the upcoming Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I've already been pretty active in this area with my collaboration with the Smash Front Room, both in creating the flipped rule set and having a lot of related discussions. But today I'd like to actually go through the process of evaluating stages a bit more. We're going to have 103 stages when the game comes out to evaluate. But many of those stages we'll be able to rule out very quickly based on attributes that we have extensive Smash experience to know are simply not workable. This will be a bit of a series in which I examine each of these attributes, explain the various issues they bring up, and try to establish a list of which stages simply have no chance for legality. If all goes well and you guys find these helpful, I hope to continue into discussing the stages that do have a chance and what we can look for in those. But for now, let's talk about stages with walk-offs. To start off with, a walk-off in Smash is simply a description of the situation in which a stage's ground extends all the way to the left or right blast zone, instead of having a ledge and a bottomless pit like most stages. Walk-offs can be permanent fixtures on stages, such as in the Bridge of Eldin, or they can be temporary, such as on Delfino Plaza. Traditionally, permanent walk-offs have been banned with minimal discussion in previous Smash games, and temporary walk-offs have long been controversial, but I'm not sure a lot of the community has ever really considered the gameplay implications. So let's dive in. The central idea that leads many players to believe walk-offs are unfair is the idea that walk-off camping is a game-breaking tactic. I think most people who played a significant amount of casual Smash quickly understand the basic strategy. You just stand by a walk-off and wait for your opponent to attack, try to grab your opponent, and use a back throw to kill really early. Before discussing where the real problems are, let's start off by clarifying that this is not actually a generally powerful tactic at all. To explain, let's consider the situation of a Ness Ditto on Wii Fit Studio. As you can see, Bumblebee Ness is sitting near the walk-off, waiting for a back throw, while Blue Ness is nearer to the middle of the stage, slightly out of Bumblebee Ness's effective attack range. Bumblebee Ness has a small lead, so Blue Ness must attack eventually. But what happens from here? If Bumblebee Ness lands a grab at this damage range, his back throw will only kill if he's very close to the blast zone. Possibly so close as to be within the continuous damage area at the stage's edge, which is not a viable place to camp for fairly obvious reasons. On the other hand, if Blue Ness lands a grab in this position, he can easily kill Bumblebee Ness with a forward throw. This is because Ness is the most extreme case of what is actually an almost universal rule in Smash Bros, and the first reason walk-off camping isn't truly strong. Back throws usually have high knockback growth and low base knockback, meaning they gain little distance at low damage, but great distance against highly damaged opponents. And forward throws are usually the opposite, doing somewhat high knockback at all times, but having very little growth potential. Even worse, imagine if the next move landed is not a grab. Since almost all non-grab attacks hit away from the user, this means that the person camping will hit his or her opponent the long way across the stage, with no chance to end a stock, whereas the non-camper will have a high chance to score an early kill by hitting directly into that near blast zone. Therefore, walk-off camping is already a bad value proposition, because if an attack is landed near a walk-off, it is usually better to be on the outside of the walk-off instead of the inside, and if both players jockey for position on that outside, you end up reverting to a traditional battle for center stage. The second problem is more fundamental, and comes down to the basic strategy for playing competitive Smash Bros. In general, the single most powerful thing to maintain in Smash is mobility, and the primary way to maintain effective use of mobility is to establish stage control, such that you can safely move around the stage while your opponent is more limited. This allows the controlling player to make various subtle and tricky moves across the stage to effectively decide when exchanges will take place. A player lacking stage control, on the other hand, is usually forced to move little and can only effectively attack by making guesses about the movement choices of the opponent, which is a bad gamble to have to make, since in order to hit, you both have to correctly anticipate the timing of an attack coming at all, and then choose an action that will counter the opponent, which is basically having to guess right twice to hit once. When camping a walk-off, you are basically completely immobile, and you yield all stage control by default, which is obvious if you think about it. Obviously, you cannot move further toward the walk-off, as this will result in instant death. And the nature of camping means that your opponent can move into the space close to your other side, and thus have free reign over almost the entire rest of the stage. If you meta it all out, This means that your opponent will generally find it easier to land the next blow than you will. Combined with the previous idea that landing hits is expected to pay off more for your opponent than for you anyway, and this begins to seem like a really bad idea. I'm sure my explanation has some of you believing walk-offs should be legal, and others believing I'm crazy for arguing that walk-offs are fair, but in truth, I've only told part of the story so far. It is true that walk-off camping is rarely advantageous, and certainly not broken, all else being equal, but the problem is that all else is often not equal. Some characters, notably Sonic and Pikachu in 4, but probably others in Ultimate, have back throws that are unusually effective at killing near walk-offs, whereas someone like Marth or Mr. Game & Watch has a forward throw that is no threat to anyone for an early kill, even quite close to a walk-off. In some matchups, such as most involving Olimar, a character's unique attributes encourage that player to focus on setting up a defensive front in the first place, and challenge the opponent to approach, instead of worrying so much about mobility. And in those matchups, the walk-off can be a defensive asset simply by reducing the number of viable approach vectors available to the opponent. So overall, while walk-offs are not broken in most matchups, they are pretty ridiculous in some matchups, and that's already a big negative. The second problem is less obvious, but significantly more extreme. Consider the actual match flow when walk-off camping is involved. The camping gives the camper a higher chance to lose than win, but in all these interactions we've been discussing the chance a player will get hit by one or two things and die quickly. This means that choosing the walk-off camp may reduce your neutral odds of victory against an even opponent, but it also makes the match hinge on fewer and simpler interactions. If you have an opportunity to camp against a superior opponent, it's entirely likely that your probability of winning on a good break in these swingy situations is higher than your odds of winning by going toward the middle and fighting honorably. Of course, if you are the weaker player and know it, you are also very likely to compound this situation by choosing a character such as Sonic, who is already unusually effective on walk-off stages. Putting this together can give weaker players a very strong opportunity to remove a large chunk of the skill gap between them and stronger players by invoking some simplistic, mostly degenerate gameplay on these stages. Thus, while the stages may not be strictly broken, it's fairly clear that including them is an overall negative to the health of the metagame, and they are simply not viable as competitive stages. However, before we close the book, let's talk about temporary walk-offs for a moment. Since using walk-offs strategically always involves camping, how does it change if the walk-off will go away with time? Well, obviously your opponent can still exert center stage control and limit your mobility when you're camping, but now the passing of time does not compel an approach from whoever is behind, and instead compels action from whoever is near the walk-off. When the stage begins to transform, the player camping the walk-off will be forced into an off-stage recovery situation. And I think anyone familiar with competitive Smash at all knows that that is a distinctly disadvantageous state. It's totally not viable at all to go for this, which is why, in general, there's not good justification for banning stages simply for having temporary walk-offs. Whatever unfair advantages those walk-offs could provide are easily turned around completely by simple and intelligent competitive Smash play. There is some interesting discussion to be had about at which point a walk-off is so persistent as to change the dynamics. Castle Siege probably deserves a video all on its own. But at a minimum, we certainly cannot claim that the super temporary walk-offs on the ordinary touring stages, like Delfino Plaza, Prism Tower, or Skyloft, are even minor negatives in their case for legality. Now the question is this: what stages have permanent walk-offs and thus can be eliminated from competitive consideration? I've identified 25 stages in Smash Ultimate that apply. They are Mushroom Kingdom, Yoshi's Island Melee, On It, Mushroom Kingdom 2, Mushroomy Kingdom, including 1-2 in the event it comes back, Figure 8 Circuit, Bridge of Eldin, Distant Planet, 75 Meters, Mario Bros, Green Hill Zone, 3D Land, Golden Plains, Gerudo Valley, Dreamland Game Boy, Living Room, Mario Galaxy, The Great Cave Offensive, Coliseum, Flat Zone X, Wii Fit Studio, Boxing Ring, Guar Plain, Pac-Land, and Suzaku Castle. I produced a helpful graphic here to demonstrate our total set of stages, and next time when we delve into another topic, I will grow this to move closer to our day 1 set of plausible stages. See you then!